Today we honor James Henry Tucker and his family. James Henry Tucker was born April 3, 1867 at Morgan, Morgan County, Utah. His parents were James Tucker and Betsy Lerwell. He was the fourth child of a family of 12. He had only one other brother, who was William. James Henry Tucker was blessed June 6, 1867, by Robert Hogue. He was baptized June 6, 1877, at Morgan. He married Rebecca Althura Tonks in the Logan Temple on December 3, 1890, in Cache County. His occupation in life was that of a farmer. James Henry and his wife Rebecca were blessed with 7 children. The only one living today is Reed Tucker of Salt Lake City. Mother and Father Tucker had many trials and heartaches. They lost one of their daughters, Mabel, with the flu of 1919. They also lost Verta Rebecca at the age of 17 with sugar diabetes. She went into a coma before they even knew what had happened. The late Catherine Tucker wrote,
"Being's my husband Doyle was the youngest of the family, I only knew Father Tucker for about 2 short years, but we lived in part of their home when we were first married. We had a bedroom and a kitchen and shared the bathroom. One of the things I remembered most about Father Tucker was he was such a hard worker. He would hitch up his horses to the wagon and go down to work on the farm until dark. The farm was located down by the island where Frank and Beth Turner now live. Incidentally, the farm had a mortgage of $2,500, and it was sold for that very same amount. Most of the time, Father Tucker would take his lunch so as not to waste the time coming and going. This attribute was passed on to both Golden and Doyle, as they both had a real drive for work. He taught them young, as he expected them to work right alongside of him. Often this hard work brought on cramps in his legs late at night. Many nights I would hear him in the bathroom moaning, "Oh, my legs, how they hurt." He showed great love and concern for his wife and family. Rebecca was such a good cook it was hard for him to push himself away from the table. She would be telling him he couldn't have any more to eat while she was dishing up another portion for him. He had high blood pressure and wasn't to eat certain foods. She tried diligently to keep him on his diet. However, when company came, she always outdid herself, and Dad Tucker seized his chance to enjoy all the food that was prepared. She, being hesitant to say much in front of company, let him indulge. They had lots of friends, and company come to see them, especially where he had 11 other brothers and sisters. Dad Tucker was very outspoken about how he felt and what he thought. Sometimes he frightened me until I got to know him better, and then I realized he was a tender-hearted gentleman, and he got over things quickly. He was honest in his dealings with others. He was a little hard of hearing in his later years. This became more evident when he started the car. He always raced the motor when starting the car, because he couldn't hear if it was running. One time I heard a terrible noise, and I ran out on the porch to see what it was. It was Dad. He had been racing the engine to see if it was running, and after putting the car in reverse proceeded to back out. Luckily, his foot slipped off the clutch and the engine killed. Had it not, I don't know where he would have ended up, for the gas feed was floorboarded. Hence, whenever possible, Doyle started the car for him. He received his patriarchal blessing February 19th in 1895 from Patriarch Richard Rawl. A second blessing was received November 23rd, 1900 from Patriarch Rawl, and a third blessing from Patriarch Alma Porter. James Henry was a stocky man, not too tall, but I remember his dark, thick hair was not a touch of gray in it. He wore it in a crew cut, as it was easier to manage, and it was very becoming to him, I'm sure that as a young man he was very handsome. He was active in the church and served a mission to the southern states from November 1900 to 1902. He and Rebecca had been married about 10 years. He was away from home for about 2 years, leaving his wife and 4 children. He had a testimony of the gospel. He was ordained a high priest on October 2nd, 1927, by Apostle Melvin J. Ballard, which must have been a great spiritual experience for him. One day he had been planting his peas and had worked all day long. He came home sick and went to bed. In the night, Mother Tucker called Doyle and the rest of the family as he was unconscious. James Henry Tucker died of a cerebral hemorrhage on May 1st, 1935. I'm grateful to the Mormon missionaries who converted the Tucker family and that James Henry had a testimony of the gospel. I'll be ever thankful that James Henry and Rebecca brought my husband into the world so that I too could belong to the great Tucker family.
Rebecca Althura Tonks was born in Morgan, Morgan County, Utah, on July 9, 1871. She was the daughter of William Tonks and Martha Derricut. She was the last of 8 children: Elizabeth, George Moroni, William Henry, Martha Jane, Louisa, Mary Elizabeth, Polly, and Charles. Her mother and father were married in England and then came to America, arriving in New York in 1856. They lived in New York for 3 years. George Moroni and William Henry were born during this time. In the early spring of 1859, they crossed the plains, arriving in Salt Lake City in October of 1859. William opened and ran a nail factory and blacksmith shop in Salt Lake until 1866, when they were sent to help settle Morgan County. They lived in Morgan City until 1872, where William worked at his blacksmith trade, and then they bought and cleared land in South Round Valley, where they built a large stone house. Here was where Rebecca grew up. She was baptized May 3, 1880, by William Hemming, and confirmed the same day by James R. Stewart at Morgan.
Rebecca received her patriarchal blessing February 19, 1895, from Patriarch Richard Rawle at Morgan. Rebecca was a very even-tempered lady, and she was truly a lady in every way. She was loved by her friends and relatives, for she was always gracious. Everyone loved to come and see her or stay with her, for she always had something good on hand to eat. Being an excellent cook, no one entered her home without being offered cookies, fruit, cake, or the like. One of our favorites was her homemade root beer. She taught me a great deal about cooking. I used to say to her, "You've spoiled Doyle," or if he did not like what the others were having, she'd make something else for him. The rest of the family liked plain peas. He didn't, so she would cream his. He didn't like fruit cake, so she made him something else for dessert. Living by her, I learned to love her. She was very tender-hearted and took everyone's troubles as her own. She was often heard to say, dear me, the poor people." It was easy for me to love her because my husband was so much like her. She was so very sympathetic. She loved to go to Ogden and see her daughter Eva, so when I would go, I would take her with me and Eva would take her shopping. She loved nice things. She was always prompt. I never remember waiting for her. Her life was not easy. After having been married for about 10 years, her husband James was called on a mission to the southern states, leaving her home with 4 children. During this time, Golden, the baby, became seriously ill with lung fever and almost died. But she struggled through, and Golden finally became well. In 1919, they lost their daughter Mabel with the flu, leaving her 2 young sons, Garland, age 4, and Dee, age 2, for Mother Tucker to raise, which she did until Mabel's husband remarried. Then a year after Mabel's passing, Verda Rebecca died at age 17. She went into a coma from sugar diabetes and never came out of it. I have recollections of Hal, my eldest child, banging on her door until she answered it and let him in. She always fed him, so he knew what he was after when he went to her door. One day Hal, then 18 months old, went outside, and I thought he had gone over to Grandma Tucker's. In a few minutes I felt I'd better go to check and make sure. He had not gone there, and I became alarmed as the river bridge was out for some reason or another. There was also a canal, and Mother Tucker ran up and down the canal, and I ran up and down the river looking for him. We later found him in Taggart's garage. He had just sauntered up the street, which surprised me, as he had never left the yard before. Another incident I remembered was when it was storming outside. Mother Tucker had a kind of gadget rack hanging over her sink by the kitchen window. All of a sudden a bolt of lightning flashed through the window, splitting the handle of the egg beater that was hanging on the rack, and left a big black mark on the kitchen sink. Needless to say, she was very frightened of storms after that. She loved the gospel and had a strong testimony. She worked in the church in many positions, one of which was as second counselor in the South Morgan Relief Society, to serve under Sister Florence Visick. One of her main desires was to do genealogical work. She kept a file of all research. Night after night she would sit at the table and work on her genealogy. Everything was always in its place and kept up to date. She was charitable and a good neighbor, always willing to listen. When my father was ill with pneumonia, Dora would take me down to Peterson to take care of him at night. I would put Hal to bed, and then she would take care of him until morning. She was so willing to do anything to help anyone. Mother Tucker was never the same after her husband James died, May 1st, 1935. She seemed to lose all interest in life and literally pined herself away after James's passing. Life no longer seemed important to her, even though she had loved life before. She owned the home in which we now live. We hated to leave her, but wanting more children, we needed more room than our one-bedroom kitchen and shared bath gave us. Understanding our situation, she sold us the home her father had built. When we moved out of her place, another widow, Sister Moore, moved into our little apartment, and they were great company to each other. Her health began to fail her, and she became very ill about 6 weeks before she passed away. Belva, Zella, and I took turns taking care of her for a week at a time. She became so ill that we finally had to take her to the hospital. She died of kidney failure on the 29th of March, 1938. All of her family was with her at the time of her passing.
James Henry Tucker and Rebecca Althea Tonks were the proud parents of 7 children, 4 girls and 3 boys.
Mabel Lawrence Tucker was born October 12, 1891, at Morgan, Morgan County, Utah, and was married January 8, 1913, in the Salt Lake Temple to Theodore Thomas Geary. She bore him 2 children. He died November 28, 1963, age 73, at Logan, Cache County, Utah, and was buried December 2nd at Smithfield. She died March 3, 1919, age 27, at Morgan, and was buried there. Eva Tucker was born March 12, 1894, in Morgan, Morgan County, Utah, and was married January 24, 1917, in the Salt Lake Temple to Orler Allen Ingalls. She bore him 4 children. He died September 24, 1960, at age 69, at Ogden, and was buried in the Ogden City Cemetery September 28. Eva died July 25, 1943, age 49, at Ogden, and was buried in the Ogden City Cemetery July 28. Zella Tonks Tucker was born January 17, 1896, at Morgan, Morgan County, Utah, and was married June 9, 1920, at Morgan, to DeWitt Henry Shotliff. She bore him 3 children. He died December 26, 1959, age 66, at Cheyenne, Laramie County, Wyoming. She died October 4, 1972, at age 1876 at Cheyenne and was buried there October 5th.
James Golden Tucker was born May 1st, 1899 at Morgan, Morgan County, Utah, and was married December 14, 1921 in the Salt Lake Temple to Belva May Spendlove. She bore him 2 children. He died September 16, 1970, age 71 at Morgan, and was buried there September 19th.
Berta Rebecca Tucker was born March 6, 1903 at Morgan, Morgan County, Utah, and died April 20, 1920, age 17 at Morgan, and was buried there.
Reed Tonks Tucker was born January 8, 1905 at Morgan, Morgan County, Utah. Doyle William Tucker was born November 24, 1908 at Morgan, Morgan County, Utah, and was married April 27, 1933 in the Salt Lake Temple to Catherine Whittier. She bore him 5 children. He died April 14, 1977, age 68 at Ogden, Weber County, Utah, and was buried at Morgan April 16th. Catherine died January 24, 1983, age 68 at Ogden, and was buried in the South Morgan Cemetery January 27th.
The total known posterity of James Henry Tucker, 1867-1935, as of June 1, 1983. 7 children, 16 grandchildren, 71 great-grandchildren, 25 second great-grandchildren, 119 total posterity, 32 total spouses of children, including grandchildren, 151 total posterity, including spouses.
The obituary of Rebecca Althea Tonks in the Salt Lake Tribune of Wednesday, March 30, 1938, page 21, is as follows. Ogden. Mrs. Rebecca A. Tonks Tucker, 65, widow of James H. Tucker of Morgan, died at 5 a.m. Tuesday in a local hospital following a several weeks' illness. She had resided in Morgan her entire life and was born there July 9, 1872, to William and Martha Tonks. A member of South Morgan LDS Ward, she was active in the Ward Relief Society. She was also a member of South Morgan Camp Daughters of Utah Pioneers. Her husband, to whom she was married in Logan in 1890, died in Morgan several years ago. 5 sons and daughters survive: Mrs. O. A. Ingalls and Mrs. D. H. Shotliff of Ogden, James G., Reed T., and Doyle W. Tucker of Morgan, 9 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. Also 4 brothers and sisters: Henry Tonks of California, Charles Tonks of Morgan, Mrs. Jane W. Franson of Salt Lake City, and Mrs. Ben Jones of Victor, Idaho. Funeral arrangements are under direction of Lindquist and Sons. The obituary of James Henry Tucker in the Salt Lake Tribune of Thursday, May 2, 1935, page 18, is as follows. Morgan, James Henry Tucker, 68, prominent Morgan County farmer, died at his home here Wednesday at 9:40 a.m. Mr. Tucker was born here April 3, 1868, a son of James and Betsy Lerwell Tucker. He was a member of the LDS Church and was active in the South Morgan Ward, holding the position of high priest of the Morgan State Quorum. He worked for a number of years in the Genealogical Society of the South Morgan LDS Ward and served a mission in the southern states in 1903. He was formerly president of the Morgan Summit County Pea Growers Association. Surviving are the widow, Mrs. Rebecca Tonks Tucker, and 5 sons and daughters: Mrs. O. A. Ingalls, Ogden, Mrs. D. A. Shotliff, Gering, Nebraska, J.G., Doyle W., and Reed T. Tucker, Morgan. 10 grandchildren, a brother and 10 sisters. Mrs. Lucy Jones, Garland, Wyoming. Mrs. Annie Clark, Carlin, Nevada. Mrs. Bertha Spackman, Farmington. Mrs. Priscilla Kingston, Ogden. Mrs. Lily Smith, Bountiful. Mrs. Rose Van Orden, Goshen. Mrs. Emily Condy of California. Mrs. Susan Simmons, Oakley, Idaho. Mrs. Lydia Muir, Logan. Mrs. Nettie Gorder and William L. Tucker, Morgan. Funeral services will be conducted Saturday at 2 p.m. in the South Morgan LDS Ward Chapel by Bishop Howard Francis officiating. Friends may call at the Larkin & Sons Drawing Room Thursday from 1 p.m. until 9 p.m. and at the family home in Morgan Friday and Saturday until time of services. Interment will be in the South Morgan Cemetery.
As descendants of these fine and faithful people, let us remember their strong and wonderful qualities and try to live our lives to make them proud of us.